Well, good evening and welcome to our 2025 meeting, our first one of the year. And welcome to our new council member, Kelly Davis. So we have nothing to report out of closed session. And I will now, can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Dell Harris. Here. I'm used to saying mayor.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis. Here. Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Holmes.
Here.
And Mayor Amara.
Present. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and Councilwoman Riddell Harris. Ready? Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got a little. So the next item is the mayor's commendation proclamation acknowledgements. And we have the first one is the certificate of award on behalf of the city council. And that goes to the Station Public Lounge. And Tyler, would you step forward, please? And I'd like to present this on behalf of the city council. Congratulations. I just want Councilwoman Riddell Harris to talk a little bit about this award. I think she had some involvement in this.
Yes, so this is just, we were trying to get more holiday spirit going around the city. So we had an award for the best commercial built business that did decorations, and the station always does a wonderful job. They came this close last year. And then we also had one for residential as well. So the station did a wonderful job. So
Thank you for, and we have a little gift certificate for you and a certificate, and thank you for participating and good job and great business you have.
Thank you very much, Sandy. It's not a PG&E gift card.
it's Auburn Ace Hardware. So that way you can use it to do more decorating next year.
We will definitely spend it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I also wanted to thank, on a side note, the city staff for being fantastic and working with us with our expansion this year. City staff have been amazing about that, and they deserve to be acknowledged. And thank you for this award. We do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. And the next award is for, I believe this is for home decoration, and that's for Betty Martin. So if you'd step forward, Betty. So this is on behalf of the city council, and we also have a little gift certificate for you, and thank you for participating and making Auburn beautiful. Thank you, Betty. Oh, is that her home there? Beautiful.
She really went all out. We loved it. My kids loved it too.
Thank you. Good way to start our meeting. So we have now the adoption of the agenda. This is the time set aside for council members and or the public to ask for a removal, postponement, or a change to the listed sequence of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by consensus of the council. Do I have anyone who wants to remove anything with or modify the agenda from council, the public?
Mr. City Manager, did you want to pull item 6?
Yeah, I apologize. So we need to pull item number 6 from the agenda tonight, bring it back to council at a future date.
Thank you. Item number 6 on the consent agenda will be pulled. Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is the next item. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. I would like to remove item number 3, and item number 6 has been pulled, so. Any others from council? And the public have any items to remove from the consent? Okay, do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Oh,
Coun-
oh,
Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis. Aye. Dowden Calvia.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Mayor Amara.
yes. Thank you. That passes. And item number 3, I pulled, this was the mayor appointments to boards, committee, and commissions. There is one change that, it was my mistake, so I want to change that. And that is, the, city general plan focus group. It'll be, Councilwoman Rachel Riddell Harris, and instead of, Councilwoman Kelly Davis, it'll be, Councilwoman, Alice Dowden Cavillo. And that's the only change. And I don't know if there's any other discussion on this matter. And the public? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve item 3 as amended.
I'll second.
Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvia.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Mayor Amara.
Yes.
Can I also take a motion on the 806 form for that item? It's the second part.
Oh.
the 806 form?
I'll second.
Thank you. Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis. Aye. Dowden Calvia.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
And Mayor Amara.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the public comment. This is a time provided so the public may speak to the council on any item not on the agenda. Please make your comments as brief as possible, not to exceed 3 minutes. And the council cannot act on items not included on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. And I see Sue has a public comment.
I'm just chomping at the bit. So, thank you, Mayor Amara and city council members. Welcome back after a nice new year. I came before you on April 22nd of 2023, asking for an update from Caltrans about the roundabout at Borland and 49. And my particular interest is I want to know where the crosswalk's going to be and how we're going to have safe passage for pedestrians to get and bicycles to get through there. And I still don't see it. I've gone onto the website at Caltrans and it's not obvious where the crosswalk is. I don't know if it goes under the train trestle, but I do not see it. So I'd really like to have it explained exactly where the crosswalk's going to be. We also, I rattled some cages this week and I asked 2 Caltrans employees to come. I hope that they're here. I asked the public information officer and the project manager to come and give an update about where we are with the roundup. And I've talked to Sean too, asking for an update from the city. So I'm not going to talk about my conversation with Caltrans if they're already here. Caltrans here? Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just pass the baton.
So are we doing this as public comment?
Yeah, actually, Madam Mayor, I was going to ask if we could provide a little bit extra wiggle room on the timing for
That's fine.
Caltrans to do
I
that.
think that'd be helpful. Thank
They
you.
did meet with our Public Works Director, Menjel Dean, ahead of time this afternoon, so he can answer questions specific to the city as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, so a pleasure to be with you guys tonight. My name is Sean Shaw. I'm a project manager for Caltrans District 3. We're based out of Marysville. My specific area of assignment is Interstate 80 and the kind of the areas roundabout. Just to give you guys an idea of what's going on with with the Borland 49 roundabout project is we are waiting for a what do you call it? A utility relocation permit from Union Pacific Railroad. Unfortunately, the railroad owns the property for couple 100 feet, on either side of where their tracks are. And so the area where we're constructing the roundabout is exactly within their right of way. And so whenever we want to, change the geometry of the roadway, relocate public utilities, we do have to go and get their permission. We submitted, in conjunction with the city of Auburn, we submitted that permit request to UPRR in February of 2023. So we're coming up essentially on a year.
February 24.
February 2024. So we're almost at a year. All the other work that can be done prior to the relocation of the sewer, that has been done. We're anticipating that once we receive that permit, it'll probably take us about 4 months to kind of, complete the balance of the work and then get everything buttoned up. I did note that people are interested in kind of seeing, what the roundabout is going to look like. And so I'm gonna pull together some plans, potentially even, get kind of a rendering for people to look at. And I'll provide that, to the city of Auburn so that can be posted. So I guess that's kind of the update, that I have. It's a little bit dissatisfying. I know, I'm pretty frustrated, that it's taken this long. We have to go through several rounds of, comments and revisions to the plans with UPRR. The last time that they came back to us, they just wanted us to upgrade the piping for the sewer that was going to be within their right of way. We have upgraded that. And so I'm hoping that this time they come back with just an approval instead of further questions and comments like they've done in the past.
So to be clear, you anticipate that'll be maybe February, that'll be 1 year, and you think sometime before?
So
We don't.
they don't guarantee a specific timeline. They typically say, there's a 6-week turnaround. So if they hold to the 6-week turnaround, then we should hear back from them 2 weeks, but we don't have a guarantee specifically that they're going to approve it. They
yeah.
could come back with another round of questions, and then we'd have to address those, revise the plans, provide exhibits, et
And then
cetera.
did I hear you say, once they approve, it'll be 4 months? And
That's what we anticipate once, we kind of have the plan, the permit in hand to get out there and complete that relocation.
I'm assuming
Thank
that's
you.
weather permitting because this is the wet season now.
That's correct. Typically, we don't start construction around here until, say, maybe late March, early April. And it's exactly because of that. If we got out here, say, early March or, late February, and then we had lots of rain, then it would be a mess.
And when can we anticipate the rendering? You said you'd give it to the city.
So I have the plans just on my laptop, so I can give those immediately.
Right.
I'll have to, kind of go through them, and sometimes they're not very clear. They're kind of engineering drawings, but I could find something that within a day or two and provide that. The rendering, I'll have to see what's available. We do have the the capability of getting rendered drawings,
That will
that are-
show the sidewalks.
Right,
'cause I think that's
they'll
what-
show the sidewalks and grass, people walking around, bicycles, something more visually appealing than.
And the landscape that will be done
Correct.
outside of the roundabout as
Yeah.
part of the project. So this permit that we've been seeking from UP since February 2024, I mean, it sounds like there's been several rounds of discussions with them. So we submitted the request
Right.
jointly back in February 2024. They came back and said, we have these questions. We answered them. They
Right.
came back with more questions. Or, I mean, I did.
That is the typical process. They try and hold to 6 weeks once we make the initial submittal. And then they come back with comments. It takes us a little while to address their comments, change our plans, resubmit it. One of the frustrations, I guess, is that we're not working directly with UPRR. They have a consultant that handles kind of that work for them.
Okay.
And so we kind of go through them to talk to UPRR.
To address the public access issue on the rendering, will you have what the crosswalks and the sidewalks and all of that look like? So
Yes.
that way they can see? Okay.
Yes, definitely. We do have within Caltrans, we have ADA coordinators who, take a look at all that. And then, we have complete street coordinators where, we look at integrating the different modes of transportation, cars being one, mass transportation, pedestrians and bicyclists. So we try and integrate that so it works for everyone.
Great, thank you.
And I can
Great.
get those renderings. yeah.
Well, we really appreciate your input and
Oh.
Ask a question. Yeah.
Um,
Is there any capacity for Caltrans to put some type of signage out there so residents don't have to continue coming to city staff to direct them towards information or information,
To
timeline.
direct them to us.
the status, the status?
Like a status sign.
Sometimes there'll be signs that say estimated completion is X time, and
Right.
it's just taken so long that we get constant.
Yes, I do
Good one.
apologize for that. I can definitely ask about that. We could probably do something, a little bit
Just like a
informal.
simple site that's, if you updated quarterly, so people know this is the information as of this date.
Yeah.
It'll be updated this time, just to take it off of our staff.
Yes, definitely. I can do that. I can get the rendering and also work on updating the website so people have a little bit more information than what we make available for typical projects.
Thank you.
Yes.
thank you very much. I think we have one more question. Councilman.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the City Arts Commission is looking at developing some art structure that could
Okay.
be in the middle of that roundabout. So I don't know if they've discussed that with you or not, but
So I guess I just have to say I don't have any knowledge of that specifically. I know typically we work with our landscape architecture professionals, and they work on, those kind of that kind of decorations. I'd have to take a look on what do we have planned right now, but as far as I know, I think it's just landscaping, plans.
well,
That's what it's planned for now, but the Arts Commission is proposing to do some art installation there, but
in the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a good idea to put Arts Commission in touch with you too.
Yeah,
Just-
definitely.
I know they're talking to somebody at Caltrans. I know April's had some conversations, so it might be your landscape folks. I don't know, but.
Okay. If you could just pass that information to me, I could follow up on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh,
So when we talked on the phone
Yes.
this week, you said something about Caltrans is moving forward with the roundabout, even
Right.
if we get the permit or not.
So-
So at some point, they're gonna have to pick the roundabout back up to move the sewer line.
So that was an option we were exploring. I had thought personally that internally we had agreed to move forward with that, but we talked with the contractor, and the cost of redigging it up later would essentially be the same as the construction of the roundabout. So we've just decided to
Wait,
hold off,
And wait,
hope,
Yeah.
that the permit comes through in a timely manner so that we can get out there and started, in the beginning of the construction season.
yeah, we don't want to have it constructed and have to dig it all up again,
Right? It's expensive.
Yeah. And then it closes it, and yeah.
Mental, did you have something to add? Or-
do.
Okay.
That's all right. Menjel Dean, Public Works Director, thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to thank Sean and John. They've been completely professionals in this whole process. Our partners at Caltrans, while this may seem that this is an issue, a Caltrans related issue, I would like to point out that Caltrans has been extremely responsive throughout this entire process. Caltrans, along with the city staff, at every junction that came along, and any request that UPRR had, we were timely in getting their responses out to them. We started this process, as mentioned, in February of 2024. Our last communication with UPRR is on December 13th, where we send out their final round of questions. We're confident that what we've given them is beyond what they've asked for, and we expect to get an answer from them very shortly. As mentioned previously, they usually take a 6-week turnaround for this, but we don't have a mechanism in place to hold them accountable for that. So UPR can be 6 weeks to 8 weeks, but they will respond to us. That being said, we are just outside the window of our construction season right now, so it's not as pressing as it may seem, but we are confident that once we do get that permit, which we anticipate getting within the next 2 months, as mentioned, we will have this thing wrapped up in this construction season coming up.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean and John and Menjol.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment or long public comment?
Yeah.
Hi.
It just, no, it's unusual.
Good evening, honorary city council members. My name is Cody Carpino. I live at Del Monte Way. I'm a licensed architect, so I understand that construction takes a long time. I have been in touch with Sean at Caltrans last week by chance and expressed some frustrations with the pothole issue that we have currently as a temporary solution as you go southbound on Lincoln Way, turning right onto Highway 49. But what I wanted to bring to your attention is I put together a diagram for you, the map that's on your desk. I gave it to Amy before the meeting. The roundabout's frustrating, but I'm willing to wait. I think it's going to be a nice addition to our community. My concern is this. I think probably, my guess would be 80% of the traffic that comes out of the canyon probably gets on Highway 80. I-80, I may be off on that percentage. But what I drew for you there, so if the big red dot, that's the roundabout. And then the dashed red line that I show is most traffic probably making the right turn at the Elmwood Hotel and then merging onto I-80. My concern is that roundabout will be a constant flow of traffic. And so my feeling, working with traffic engineers, we're going to have a major backup at the corner there of Elm and Highway 49, which I believe is also High Street. So essentially at the corner of Elmwood Hotel. It already backs up in the morning as it is with an intersection at Borland and 49. And so hopefully Caltrans is addressing this issue. My feeling is we need a right-hand green turn arrow at Elm and 49. And then the intersection at Elm and turning on to I-80, that street light tends to go through its normal cycle, even though there may not be traffic waiting on any of the other lanes. So I'm just asking Caltrans to consider doing some traffic light measures to make sure that we get the flow of traffic off the roundabout, turning right at the Elmwood, and then left onto I-80. So thank you for listening. I hope that made sense. It was kind of hard to explain without the graphic, but
Sounds like we need another roundabout. No, just.
no more roundabouts, but
Yeah.
Is this something the traffic
Yeah,
committee
that's
should
what I
take
was
up
Gonna
too?
recommend, traffic committee. This is perfect.
Yeah, we'll be scheduling another traffic committee meeting soon.
Okay.
So we can, yeah. I'm sure you gave Amy your contact information.
I did email her this
Okay,
morning,
yeah.
so yeah, happy to engage if I
Yeah.
can be of any help or at least express my concerns.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet.
Thank
Thank you.
I think the traffic committee
Yeah.
may want to look at it, but I also think that it probably is going to be something that needs a study and
Yes,
needs
yeah.
measurement. And I don't know if we can measure it until after the roundabout's in place, but at the very least, we should be measuring it after the roundabout's in place to make sure that everything's working right. And if it's not, we should have it in as part of our plans to adjust it and make sure that
Right.
that isn't a problem moving
Yep,
forward.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Cody Carpino.
Oh, gosh, I forget how tall he is. Hi, I'm Jennifer Costa. I live on Del Monte Way. I'm actually Cody's neighbor and I am an architect. I am speaking as a private citizen here. I do serve on the HDRC. I wanted to emphasize what Cody talked about is initially about the condition of the road. If they know they're not going to be doing construction for the next 2 to 3 months and we continue to have rain, leaving AB base in those corners is creating a lot of trouble and hassle. And I've seen many people taking those potholes pretty hard. So I would request that Caltrans do some sort of temp paving over that AB that they've got going on, especially for me coming from Lincoln or Lincoln onto Lincoln. And then even some of the other corners. I don't know how often Lawson comes out to look at it, but the cones get moved around. They become a hazard. They move into the roadway or they get moved off and then people take that corner too tight. So yeah, that's my request of Caltrans is to get a better condition for the paving if they know they're not going to be out there for another couple months until at least March.
Thank you. I think Caltrans heard that. Sean, right?
Menjel did.
Menjel heard it. Thank you.
Menjel heard it.
Thank you, Menjel. Any other public comment?
Yes.
I'm Brett Castle. I live on Aeolia Drive. I would just like to add, the potholes are an issue. Furthermore, there's a liability issue there. When it comes to motorcyclists and cyclists taking a ride on that corner, there's a clear ledge. And if you got your wheel caught that, somebody that rides a bicycle and a motorcycle, pretty cut and dry lawsuit. So something should be done sooner than later.
Thank you.
Caltrans, just for the purposes of the record, Caltrans said they're having their folks come out this week.
Thank you. I didn't hear that. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I've got one. It was my understanding that nationally flags would be put at half staff until the funeral of President Carter, which took place this past week. So I'm suggesting that the city flags ought to be back up to full staff now.
$30 days. So half mast for 30 days.
Protocol.
You stand corrected, sorry. Thank you for that, though. I didn't know that either. Thank you. So any other public comment? Sue? Okay. Okay, so council business, we have the ClearGov fiscal transparency website presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Gretchen Johnson, your finance director. I'm going to start off here and just describe what we're going to be looking at, and then I'm going to jump over next to Sean there for some better logistics on the technology and do a live demonstration of the website. So back in August, the city council approved a budget software called ClearGov, and that was greatly needed. The city has been functioning with Excel and Word and PDF documents to deliver the citywide budget. And now we're shifting with getting ready to implement the budget software in full for our fiscal year 25-26 budget development. In the meantime, there was some technology that we could implement right away. And that has to do with a transparency website to show the city's history in revenues, expenditures, and some other key information related to our finances. And so tonight, what I wanted to do was officially launch that the website is available for the public and all who would like to see it. We will make sure that we have a link to this site from the city's website as well. And also do as next steps, a push out to social media with the link as well, so everyone knows it's there. So I'm going to hop over to next to Sean and show you how it works. Oh. That's it. Okay. Hear me all right? Yeah? Okay. So looking at this website here, it's got a main bar that I'm hovering over, overview, revenues, expenditures, demographic, etc. So on this overview tab, the ClearGov company, they use a lot of US Census Bureau data. And so the demographics are coming from ClearGov's data source. Finance doesn't do a lot of demographic tracking, if at all. So that's just kind of a nice to have that we were able to get on the website. And then it goes into an overview of the financials. It defaults to our general fund. And because this is our latest budget year, it's showing our budget in the bold, revenues of 19.7 and expenses of 21 million. It also has a per capita that's based on those demographics, which is kind of neat. You can identify how much per person the math is based on our population. There's also a view breakdown buttons, which I'll get to here in a moment. A nice bar chart visually showing budget and expenses, or revenues and expenses rather, through actuals and budget. And we went back to fiscal year 1920 just to provide some trending that folks could see in terms of the revenues and expenditures. We have our new Tyler system effective fiscal year 22-23, which is here. So there's going to be a little bit more sophisticated data behind the scenes than in prior years, but at least the prior years are there. And then we also have a feature for Open Checkbook, and this is very similar to the quarterly warrants report that we bring to City Council with the monthly warrants that go out to all of our vendors. So those are all there as well. And it's important to note that this website is not live every single day as transactions occur. The website will be updated with the latest and greatest every time we go forward to City Council to adopt the budget or to get approval to do a budget amendment. And everything after that will refresh. There's also a handy fund balance section for just at a glance totals of what fund balances, and we can change funds here if we wanted to. Sewer fund, gas tax, etc. could be chosen. But the actual detail, if we scroll to the top, we wanted to look, for example, at our expenditures. Here they are by year, and a little bit of, it's like it's kind of nice to know, need to know in order to know what you're looking at a little bit. But we have each fiscal year is either completed or in process. So you kind of have to know, is my fiscal year done? Is it in process? Or is it just budget information? So what I mean by that is 2025 is just budget information because we don't have anything loaded for our actuals yet because the year is very new. But if we look at fiscal year 2024, we start to see, oh, I have some information about the trend. So this was back in October when we had the last budget adjustment approval go through. So these numbers are a little bit out of date, but you can at least start to see budget versus actuals. So I'll use this to scroll down to try to get more detail. There's a pie chart. You can change it to bar charts to see, okay, here are the costs for the city at the high level, public safety, etc., and where they align. And then if you wanted, here's our administrative function of the city. So that includes everything from finance to ARPA to city manager to city clerk. Everything is in that administrative area. You could view the breakdown with that budget. And here's what I started to mention. Here are all the departments within the administrative function. And then here is each one of those where you can start to view even greater breakdown. So I'll use finance. Finance is broken down like all departments, either by personnel costs or non-personnel costs, and then capital. So if we look at non-personnel services and say, I want more detail. Again, I'm just drilling down. Then we get to the actual budget line items. So that's the greatest detail you can get to in terms of basically what you were seeing in terms of departments. So it's super high level at the fund, and then it drills down into departments, into functions, and then the actual activities that are in the budget itself by line item. So over time, the actuals and budget will be updated. The years that have already been completed are fully loaded in. And you can see that the red, we had a couple years of being over budget as a city, right? And so you're really able to see that in most departments have that red and green contrast in those years.
And can you see what the overage was spent on? Like, so could you go in there and drill down and see, or is that?
The closest thing you could do is look at the line items themselves and see, okay, postage, for example, is over 5,000 versus 3,000. You could see those types of things. The other, if you really wanted to get in there, is you could download this information too into Excel. So if I do that, this should open Excel. And it's actually a nice report that spits out. And then you have it all right there in front of you. If you wanted to start adding some numbers and really having a good time with numbers, you could do it. So that is pretty much the high level overview of what's here. Again, there's a demographics tab you can get into and have some fun with in terms of what the software vendor is providing about Auburn versus the state and things like that. The debt portion, we're not using at this point. And then the checkbook, that's all there. You could even download the entire checkbook for the year if you wanted to. So it's definitely a lot better and exciting than Auburn has had in the past. So we're excited to have it, and that pretty much wraps up my presentation, but definitely open to any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you so much. So we can go to Auburn City website and then access it that way?
Yes, so if not today, tomorrow, we're going to have the link up there. We do have on the staff report tonight, there's a direct link if you
I
want
saw
to,
that. Okay.
yeah, if you
But
want.
tomorrow we can go to the city one? Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. Any questions from?
I just have a comment. I'm just really pleased to see this. This is fantastic. And thank you so very much. This is something that's been needed for so long, and to be able to have this information available at our fingertips, you know, any resident or business can just have access if there's questions. And I just really like that, the transparency and the accountability. So really pleased to see it, and thank you very much.
Just like to say thank you for all your hard work. You haven't even been here a year yet, right?
Right.
And you've made so many improvements and increased our transparency and really shifted us in the good financial direction. So we really appreciate all your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, public, have any questions? Well, everyone here echoes the same thing. That's very much appreciated. We will certainly be poring over it.
Okay,
So
I can't wait to hear your questions.
So our next item is our vacant commercial building draft ordinance informational item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Community and Economic Development Director. This, as you can see bolded on the front of that, is a draft. In June of last year, we were given direction as staff to come up with some language for a vacant building ordinance. I think actually at the time, Vice Mayor Amara came up with it as a tax, and in researching and also the direction from then Mayor Riddell Harris was to look at, an ordinance for how we regulate these things. So this is simply a proposal. There's been a bit of time put into it. It's similar to one that I've done before. But this is a very in-depth one. There, if you look at communities like Roseville, they have like a one page. It says thou shalt register and thou shalt keep it nice. And then it goes straight to their nuisance ordinance for enforcement. So pretty basic. I went through and thought, okay, what can we do to, make this as adapted to the community as possible. Do you have my clicker? Is that why that is? Yeah. Thank you very much. And so without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So vacant commercial buildings, why would we regulate them? There's quite a few reasons. One is they contribute to blight, those that aren't being improved, that are sitting in the town, and just simply becoming an attractive nuisance to different variations of nefarious activities, as well as just not doing anything for us. It discourages economic development. So you don't have anybody that's when you have somebody that's not taking care of their property values aren't appreciating. It's not contributing to the economic vitality of the district that it's located in. And again, this is commercial buildings, just to reiterate, this is not residential structures and things. I'm really focusing on the main points that were brought up originally, which were commercial buildings. They invite, criminal activity. Things that, if there's nobody there working them, you can get different people that try to break into them to either seek shelter or to do other things. Also, rodents and other nuisance become a real issue with those things. All those contribute to also the amount of time that staff spends with them to try to make sure that they are being enforced and going through other nuisance provisions. They deter, investment and, customers from being in those districts. So, if they're not for sale, they're not actively being used as a commercial building, they're not doing anything. And then if somebody does put their building up for sale nearby, people look down the street and see the one that's, not in great shape or boarded up and goes, the city's really not doing so good. So, I don't know if you remember the Genevieve Marsh presentation, those of you that were there about a year ago, talking about the basic elements when she was putting together the analysis, the form-based code. And between the old town and downtown, we have very little investment in those districts. And that's according to the assessor's office. So looking at how we improve those things, and some of them are just the lack of investment in vacant buildings. It also contributes to the spread of blight. If one person's saying, well, I don't have to paint my building for another year because they don't give a, whatever. And so it does contribute to that overall mindset that, nobody else is doing it, why should I? And then it's contrary to the intent of the property. Literally, we went through, adopted a general plan, a zoning code, business regulations and everything to make these commercial districts viable and become an entity that we as a community want to see them be. And this goes right in the face of that. So next. Everybody hear me all right? This thing's down a little bit. So the ordinance that was proposed or it has been included in this packet includes vacant building prohibition. So there's certain regulations as to what a vacant building is. The registration of the building, monitoring maintenance requirements. There's a fee structure that will go along with it. I want to say right now, this is really experimental just to see the temperature of the city council, as well as maybe some ideas, tweakings or other, direction. So I didn't spend any time with the fee structure. Whatever fees would be in there to assess for staff's time to do the registration, to upkeep that, to do any type of inspections would be at a cost recovery basis. So we try to figure out a number that met what we'd currently be doing with overhead costs and so forth. So did not put any time into that. This is more or less the nuts and bolts of what that ordinance would look like. Enforcement provisions, which would refer you back to nuisance provisions, very similar to other ones. And then I also added something there about boarding regulations. We really don't have a lot of issue with boarding in town, but if we did have an event where vehicle versus building was damaged and it took the property owner a while or there was no action there as far as what they would be able to do to board those and how they would do it, as a community, what we'd want to see, folded that in there too. So that's another reason this is kind of a lengthy document. So what is a vacant commercial building? You can see this one here doesn't have an open sign. There's no hours of operation posted. If you were to go up, let's see what time is it. Yeah, some of them are still open. If you were to go up there right now, there would be a line of lit up buildings next to it, and then this one would be dark. There had been numerous community complaints about this one simply not contributing to the district in which it's located. There's no sale prices on the items visible. I will say that they did try to spruce the place up, because when I did take the picture, there is a Christmas tree there. So they did make a little bit of effort there, but it's still, you know, we have a high demand for commercial properties, especially in where this one's located. And it would be one of those things where we could put that in the portfolio of vacant opportunities and have somebody slide in there that really wants to start a business and contribute. So, and then of course, personal belongings. I can't tell you how long that scaffolding's been there, but it's been there for a while. And again, this is any condition that's combined or on its own would lead a reasonable person to believe that the building is vacant. This one, you have the facades not in great condition. The windows are covered with black plastic. You have things on the window that are not advertising a business there. It's actually advertising other businesses. There's a bunch of tape there from where they've posted up events and other posters, because there's no reason to look in there. There's been numerous community complaints. And again, there's no for rent sale, there's no for sale sign, no business license, and really no known activity at this location. So these are just examples of buildings that one would look at and go, okay, this is a vacant building under this ordinance. So what is a vacant commercial property? It's something that's vacant for more than 30 days. If it's in contract, if there's, if it's moving forward, it's in escrow, those types of things, that's considered action. Otherwise, if it's just sitting there and there's no activity going on, after 30 days, they would be put into the registration, or they'd be, per this ordinance, required to register. This number is not an arbitrary number. It's one I found in other ordinances, but there's also variations that allow for more time depending on what the flavor of the council is on this. Registration of vacant properties requires them to complete a statement of intent. There's really two things in this ordinance that was trying to be achieved. One is, if you have a vacant building fee, that's one thing, or a tax, that's one thing. But for some of the owners in town that own multiple properties all over Northern California, that fee may not be a big deal. It may just, be a write-off to them for taxes and so forth. So it has also the obligation to do something. So requiring them as a owner, or as hiring somebody to work on their benefit or on their behalf, or having somebody work on their behalf, needs to complete statements, quarterly registration fees. Monthly reporting shall be done that they have to submit during their quarterly registration payments. And they need to constantly document the condition of the property. They also are required to post whoever their person is that's maintaining it in the window, so that A, if it's a vacant property, people can get a hold of them if they're interested in that property. And B, if something happens, we know that there's somebody there that's local that's looking after it. So once they've registered, they must either do one of three things. They have to be in a building permit process to renovate, repair, so forth. And there's a certain time frame there, but I won't go into it. It has to be in good condition and offered for rent or for sale. Or there's those circumstances where you have one that's in good condition that maybe is in probate, maybe is in escrow, an extended escrow, or is going through some real personal times, but the building is not contributing to blight and many of the other factors. It's just delayed on its reentry into the market, and that would be a legitimate excuse. All these types of codes are very labor intensive. You have to track these properties. Once a complaint comes in, contacting the property owner, offering sometimes multiple notifications of the violation. Then taking the staff time to receive those reports that would then be required, and make sure that they meet the standards that would then be provided by the ordinance. Making sure that we contain files, active files within the department for each property that is then considered vacant. Making sure that the people are upkeeping all the records and information that's required. And then after that, if you get into an enforcement situation, going after those individuals to ensure, and this gets really intense because it refers to our nuisance provisions in there, which talks about abatement, talks about things where the city comes in and takes over, and so those add to additional staff time and cost associated with these. So this is a, you know, gee whiz kind of an ordinance, but we do not go out and actively pursue violations as a city. Normally it's unless it's life, health, safety. We are there to, when people report violations, then react to those, and that's how we normally receive those. So we have a handful of them that are known within the community right now, could change in the future. But at least at this moment, there'd be a number of them based off of the complaints that we would go after shortly after this. And so, but there are fees to recover the cost, as well as regular inspections that would then be done on the owner's behalf, that since they're not doing their own inspections, would then be charged to them after 1 year. And then the boarding. So why did we do this? Because, you know, boardings or openings and, you know, windows, things like that, or when there's a fire and they cover up the openings, we want them to actively pursue abatement of the issue. So we require a permit, we put a time frame on there. If they're going to be an extenuated time frame, then we require them to paint the wood. There's certain standards so it blends in with the facade, so it doesn't stand out like somebody drove a truck through the building for longer than it really needs to be. And so that's just at the back there. And so that would be in addition to vacant buildings. Like this one right now is considered vacant, so it would also be under the boarding ordinance as well. So, any questions? I know I followed the budget lady, which she, you know, had this really lively presentation, and then you have to listen to this. And so hopefully I didn't put anybody to sleep.
So, Councilman Holmes, go ahead.
Yes, this seems to be focused on street level business, and does not include offices and so forth that are upstairs off the street.
If you look at the definition of vacant building, it's any commercial building, whether in a strip, mall, part of an office structure, that is considered vacant. It's the intent, I believe, when directed to bring this back, was to deal with some of the vacant ground floor level.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
item.
But does commercial mean offices as well?
Yeah.
Okay, not apartments, so.
No.
Okay, that's residential.
Is
that your
there?
question? Councilman,
Do you have any other questions?
oh, well, yes, you alluded to a company that has a number of buildings in Auburn without actually naming them. And it seems to me that, and I agree that it's unsightly to have these street level buildings not occupied with some kind of business, but what is the responsibility of the owner of the building to go out and get people to rent?
So this forces them into the process of registering, having to do a report that says what they're going to do with the structure, their intent, doing the regular inspections of it, providing photos, basically interacting with staff on a regular basis. Again, there's two elements to this. One is the fee that's associated, and the other one is the obligation to report and be accountable for that property. They need to have it either for rent, for sale, and an active building permit, or meeting all the requirements of being in good condition, but with extenuating circumstances.
Okay. And what role would the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Auburn play in trying to get businesses to move into those empty spaces?
Well, I know the chamber does a good job of working with people that are interested in, you know, starting a business here. Our department receives a lot of inquiries. We work quite frequently with different people that are looking for property. And I would encourage anybody that has somebody out there that is interested in starting a business here, that I'd be happy to start with them. There's no cost. And we have a lot of properties, not a lot, but we have basically our pulse on all the vacancies that, either are on the market or not on the market, and trying to network those connections with folks and put, businesses in the best locations possible for their benefit and for ours is our goal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dowden Cavilla? I
Yes,
think
thank
we all have questions. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. And I do have several questions and some comments as well. First, I appreciate that you brought forward this draft, and I like to call it draft because I think that there's a lot of work that it's, there's some additional work that's needed. But I had some general questions first, and then I wanted to go into some more specific. And the first one was, do we know the number of current vacancies that we have? Have we collected that data? I'm just curious if
Commercial vacancies?
Mm-hmm.
Not offhand, no.
Okay.
I mean, the active ones that receive complaints, well, up until recently was 5, and that one finally got started.
Is there a way for us to get that data? I guess it's just going around and counting.
We'd have to do a
We have
windshield
to just
level
go around
survey
and
to
count,
do it.
Yeah. Did we work with the chamber and the business associations? I know, again, this is just a draft, but did you work with other stakeholders? PCAR, I say PCAR because, they obviously involved in the sale and so forth. And I also wonder about if we had any involvement with the property owners themselves.
So did present to the Downtown Business Association, did present to Old Town Business Association, in which one of the property owners was actually there. Did go to the Planning Commission and present there. Has mentioned it at Chamber. I believe I mentioned at PCAR. I gave a presentation there about all the activities we were doing. I'd have to go back and check my slides, but I'm pretty sure that was one of them that was mentioned there. Have mentioned it in many other locations in which I've been invited to speak.
Have we floated the actual draft ordinance around or just kind of talked about conceptually something?
Yeah, because it's so long and in depth, I had a white paper that I was using for the purpose of explaining it. So this has not hit the streets per se.
Sure. Now it is.
Other
'cause
than
Yeah, with the disclosure. So, in my mind, whatever, before we even can move forward, I would really like to have all the stakeholders have the opportunity to take a look at whatever language. Again, I know that there are lots of questions and I have some suggested changes and so forth, but I really want to make sure that we are involving the stakeholders before we take any official action. I think that's really important. And I think it's important to talk to the property owners as well. They're obviously going to be involved in this, and I would want to hear what they have to say as well. I think that's prudent. We would do that if we were to impose any regulations on residential. We would, let the residents know. So with that said, the other thing is, now I know you talked about Roseville, that they just had a 1-pager. Do you know what other jurisdictions within the region have similar ordinances or how they're dealing with vacant issues?
The only other one I could find that's anywhere near here is Nevada City. None in Placer County that I found have any type of ordinance.
Okay,
There are
so-
some along the coast, San Francisco, there's some down south, Bakersfield, Palm Springs, larger municipalities that do have vacant building ordinances.
Okay, but in Placer County, just Roseville had the 1-pager kind of
Only
thing.
one I could find, and this is based off Google searches.
Sure, because I wonder also how successful these kinds of endeavors are. I recognize that we have these vacant buildings and that they can contribute to blight and so forth. But I also step back a little bit and just wonder how effective they can be, because ultimately you've got these, this enforcement, but what's the ultimate stick? We're going to lien their property? I mean, and I just think about all the costs that are involved in those kinds of activities. The ordinance talks about a couple of fees, I think monitoring and one other kind of fee, but as you mentioned, there's no fee schedule, that there's just the authority to set those fees. But, I'd want to know really what the amount of time and what the cost of staff time would be to implement and enforce such an ordinance. Is it really going to be cost effective for us, or is it going to cost, so.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I
but
do
right
agree.
now, we don't have any, the fees we would have to set. But I would be interested because in developing those fees, ultimately, we would want to have that data. So I'm just mentioning that, it'd be good to know what the costs would be to implement and to enforce, because that's the kind of data that you would need in any fees. Also, so stakeholders, the other thing that just concerns me a little bit with regards to this is that, for example, you have that vacancy, the old post office. That old post office in Old Town has all that history, those boxes and so forth. And, the landlord, the business or the property owner hasn't done anything with it. I think they're kind of waiting to see if they can get like a mail or somebody to come in. But I would sure hate to pressure them and have them just trash all that history in there just because of an ordinance, that it's,
Right.
so, I mean, and the other thing is too, just to think about that, obviously we want we want businesses to come in, but we also just want the right businesses to come in too. We don't want just someone to put something in there just because they got to get someone in there right away. The bigger concern really, like I said, I thought about, the old post office. And I don't know, like, for example, the old, the building that had the old medical museum. I don't know what's in there now, if that's being utilized for commercial. I don't know, but it was a museum. I know museums would be exempt from this, but it would just be for commercial, but I just kind of wonder about that. So just sort of, those are some kind of general comments and questions that I have, but then getting into the document itself. And I can just cite the pages. We talk about, and this is page 109 of the packet and 108 and 109, about vacant commercial buildings being a major cause and source of blight. And I think that we have to differentiate between long and short-term vacancies. I know in here you talk about a 30-day vacancy rate, and then they have to comply with the ordinance. To me, 30 days is way too short because that barely gives them time to do anything, especially if they're an out-of-town owner. And so I would, and I think that's on page 1111, where you talk about that it's not been legally occupied for 30 days. I would suggest that that be lengthened even to 120 days in order to give the property owner sufficient time to find somebody to come in and rent that space. But again, talking about long-term versus just vacant, because right now we just say vacant, and some vacant could be a day, a week, but we're really looking at more of these long-term. The examples and the complaints that I receive are the long-term vacancies. It's not the short-term.
Right.
Nobody's really complaining to me about Carpe Vino, for example. That's been closed for a couple of years. It doesn't look blighted, but it's been closed. It's not. I can call. But but there are some that are very obvious to all of us that exist in downtown and Old Town. So, but just kind of differentiating between that long-term and short-term. Again, that page 111, talking about the building's been vacant. I just, that really 30 days is, to me, is too short. We talk about the quarterly registration fee. Again, that's where I'd really want to know what the staff time would be so that we can establish that fee accordingly to ensure that we're recouping whatever costs. On page 113, property owner of vacant commercial building shall immediately notify the department. I'm not really sure what immediately means, today, tomorrow. To me, I would rather have 14 days or something in there because I don't know how you just enforce immediate. Same thing. Yeah, D at the bottom. It just says immediately. Yes, but I just. Yeah, what does immediately mean? I think there should be a day because, you need to say some kind of a period of time to me. On page 114, we talk about the property owner of a vacant commercial building that becomes vacant prior to the effective date of the ordinance would have 14 days. I just kind of wondered why 14, but see other questions. Page 117, the property owner of vacant commercial building shall perform an inspection of the building and property at least monthly. that seems like it's kind of excessive to me to have the property owner do it. Maybe it's a 60 or a 90-day. It's just a lot, again, because whatever we put in place, we're having to enforce. And so that just is just a lot. So I would like to see
It's a
that.
lot for all parties. and
Yes,
part
for
of that's the
everybody, and
point of it.
including us. And we don't have the staff
We don't.
to do, then on page 118, we talk about a property owner shall not permit or allow a vacant commercial building to remain vacant for more than 30 days. Again, that to me needs to be longer. I would, 90 days longer, because you need to give them time to get someone in there. And if they need to make improvements, or I just think 30 days to me is just so short. And again, it's all subject to enforcement, and it just, we
Again,
talk,
it's complaint driven too, so it's also
Yes.
subject to people turning in.
I understand. Also on that page under number 2, we talk about ready for occupancy. I don't know if we really define what ready for occupancy means. For example, the one building that you showed in the first picture, someone could argue that that's ready for occupancy, just have to move the stuff out. So they wouldn't really be subject to anything. So I wonder if we haven't really defined what ready for occupancy means, and how does that relate to the intent that we're trying to achieve with the ordinance itself and getting those vacancies filled, because that one, like I said, that one building looks like it's ready for occupancy.
Agreed.
Again, the monitoring fee, just wanting to know what the actual costs would be for staff. And really that's going to be absolutely critical to ensure that we're able to recoup those costs. Those pretty much, and then obviously we have the authority to adopt a fee schedule, and that would have to be done congruent to any kind of ordinance. They'd need to be done, so that you would have that amount. But I think this is, like I said, it's a good start for discussion. I absolutely want to see it vetted more with all the stakeholders. I want them to be able to see the document. It's a little bit confusing in that there's so many requirements in so many places. They have to board this, they have to have signage there. It kind of got a little bit confusing. I don't know if we would have like a checklist or something that could be an attachment to the ordinance so that it was very clear as to what would have to happen and when, rather than trying to go through the ordinance itself. Just make it easier, because I'm a council member and I had a hard time. So anyway, so just my comments and some questions, and again, just looking forward to additional input. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis?
Yep. I think my main questions are, in a large building with several units, if there's a percentage or square footage that constitutes vacancy, because they might argue, oh, we have, 2 businesses in here and it writes off the rest of the building. So something along those lines. And then with the boarding, any type of requirement, if there's graffiti or if it starts getting the painting on it gets vandalized, if they have to paint over it or get rid of that.
Thank you. Councilmember Del Harris?
Sorry. Thank you. I'm bummed that we need this ordinance in the first place, I think is my big thing. Is I wish that this wasn't needed, because that would solve everything. We wouldn't have to charge these fees and do things. The point of this isn't necessarily that we want to have an ordinance. The point of this is that people think it's more convenient for them to keep a building open for whatever reason, or vacant, than to get people moved in. And that's really unfortunate, because that is not great for the city of Auburn. And so the point of this is really to make it less convenient for them to keep the building vacant than it is for them to fill it. So that way there's an incentive, because right now we're having an issue with several buildings where they are choosing to keep it vacant for whatever reasons. I don't know all the details, but that's what seems to be happening, and that's what people are complaining about to us. So we're trying to figure out how to solve this problem that we wish that people would want to be involved in Auburn and want the economics of Auburn to grow and want to have those buildings filled rather than wanting them to stay vacant. I think this is meant for those people. I don't think this is meant for the people who are doing a good job turning over their buildings. Maybe there's an economic downturn, and I think 30 days is probably too short. I think 90 or 120 might make more sense, because I want this to be a backstop. I don't want this to be us pushing people to get the wrong businesses in. But I think unfortunately, we've had to create a backstop because what has been happening, and we get complaints from people all over the place. That's probably one of the things I hear about the most when I'm talking to people around Auburn. So it's unfortunate that this is what this is. And I think you've done a great job of making it less convenient for those people to keep the building empty. Of course, we need to figure out what those appropriate fees are to cover those costs. And I wish that our staff didn't have to put that energy into that and the buildings would just be filled. But if this is what those property owners are doing, we have to find a way to mitigate that. And this seems like an appropriate way to try to mitigate that. And hopefully over time, it'll turn over and we'll never have to deal with this policy because the buildings will all be full. So I think that's great. The questions I had were, also with if there's a large building that has many offices and they have the ones in the bottom filled, does that count as a filled building? So I don't know how that's termed or considered. Because I know we have, so we're on our map on High Street, the one that's kind of on the corner
Livingston.
there, across from Rowdy Randy, that one's.
Livingston building?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tends to have a lot of what I see a great person in that building, but most of the other offices as I walk through are all empty, which is unfortunate. But that might work well with our new building code policy. Maybe those would work better as residential. So there's different options for that moving forward. And then the other question is, there's some key places in town where there's a office, but I've never seen a couple of them are realtor offices where I've never actually seen a person inside, but they technically have a listing in the window. And are we, if a building is filled, but I've never seen a person inside, does it count as filled? I guess. How does that work?
Well, that's what the definition's there. It has to be a reasonable person would assess that there's, no activity occurring at that area. So
Okay.
if they had a bunch of flyers on the window, but there's really nothing back behind it that would lead you to believe that there's any activity, they don't have a business license, there's besides their flyers, there's no signage, any
But
of
the
those
doors
things.
never open. They just always stay, I mean, they're basically a billboard. So
Right.
I don't know.
The open sign's always on. Why is it?
So
Notice that?
I guess that would be my questions, those ones where they're there, but they're not there. And so like how we would address those things. Because I think our goal is to have businesses that people can go in and out of that aren't just something that they can walk past.
Right.
Especially in the middle of Old Town and downtown. I think that's going to be critical. And I think the other question was about where are the fees? And so those will come back once we figure those out more. And I think the last question I had was, we have an issue where several places have created chain link fence areas that end up being, maybe we'll do something with it someday, and they just kind of leave the chain link fence area around, and there isn't we hear about projects that could happen, and years later, there's still a chain link fence. How do we addressing chain link fenced off areas that may or may not be something someday? Is that
Jump on
part
this
of
one?
this? I mean,
Yeah,
is that vacant lot, that not a vacant building, but when they chain link it off, it looks really not.
I mean, that's basically just a zoning code issue that during the general plan update, we can put into the zoning code that in these specific zones, commercial, whatever that is, you're not allowed to have chain link fencing, period. And as long as it's
Or
facing the street.
Just fencing off thing, we're
Right.
just having an issue where I've seen a couple times that people have been trying to create this feeling of there's something going to happen, something here,
Right.
so they just fence it off and it makes it not look great.
Right.
I know sometimes I do it for public safety reasons. I remember when the Carpe Vino building, this is years ago, there was someone, a foreign owner, and the bricks were falling off the building.
Yeah.
And we had to fence it to keep them.
Well,
So
I guess
every once in a while.
there's good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
safety issues are different, but if you're just fencing it because you don't want whatever, you can also put a white picket fence instead of a chain link fence that looks a whole lot nicer.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to express my appreciation, Jonathan, for you bringing this forward. I really appreciate it. I think it's necessary. I don't look at this as punitive. I look at it as more incentivizing the beautification and vibrancy of Auburn. I think it's very important that we look at this closely, though. I also appreciate, I've been to meetings like the Downtown Business Association where you presented it and you did a wonderful job. It was very well accepted there. And I also heard that the Old Town Business Association heard a presentation on this. And as you said, one of the property owners who you showed a picture of, or a picture of the building, was there. And I heard later that she thought that was a good idea. So in any case, I think this is, something that we really do need to look closely at. And I think that'll help Auburn a lot. We have, seems like to me, we may not have that many, but where they are really affects the vibrancy and the beautification of Auburn. So I appreciate this. I would like your explanation for why 30 days? Maybe, I don't want to just, rule it out completely, but I understand a little longer would be better, but is there a reason? And I do understand that a lot of what you're trying to do here is, as you said, make it a little more cumbersome for the property owner. It's to incentivize people. It's not, we're not here to go after the little guy that's trying their hardest. So do you have an explanation for the 30, or are you okay with a little longer? Pardon?
Plagiarism.
Oh, okay. Oh, got it. Okay.
In part, but also I did do one of these before and I had a short turnaround on it. And it actually was very instrumental in our downtown turning it around with some property owners that weren't motivated to do anything. And this kind of was that extra little motivation that seemed to achieve results.
And my understanding in reading this, then you have the 30 days plus the 10, and then then they have certain requirements, which seem pretty easy, just basically name, address, and all description. And then they don't really pay for another quarter, so another 3 months.
They pay quarterly, but they have to report monthly.
They report monthly, but they pay quarterly. So if they rent it out, then they don't
If
ever
they're
have
under contract and they notify us of that, I'd take it off the list.
done. Okay. And in looking at this, it looks like there's a lot of discretion here with, like, I think the post office came up and that kind of thing. It just, I don't think it looks, it doesn't seem like in here that it's going to be so black and white that we can't use some discretion for properties.
complaint driven, so.
Yeah, and that too. But otherwise, yeah, I have had the same questions with some of the verbiage, and of course the cost. And I think that's going to come back later, right?
Well, it depends on if this looks, which I'm getting indications from council, it looks like a positive that we want to move forward and look at, some refinements to it, then at that point, it would be worth investing some time in figuring out what those costs would look like too.
So I'm getting that feeling.
Yeah, and just again, additional outreach with stakeholders. I really want to, make sure they have an opportunity to weigh in, and I don't want to get caught on the other side saying we're not.
And
but-
that's good, but do you need any other specific questions answered from us then? Do you
I
need
think
the-
I got some general concerns here that I will look at and try to figure out a way to meet those concerns, as well as the 30 days and doing a better analysis on that so I can speak to it more, or look at, an extended period. No, I think I have what I need. I do have extra copies of it here, so if anybody does want a hard copy, I brought a couple of extra ones, so just meet up with me after the council meeting.
Okay.
And council.
And, yes.
Yep. If I can just add a couple comments too, on the 30 days versus 90 versus 120. Ultimately, this will be an enforcement issue for staff. So part of the benefit to having the shorter period is that it is easier when you are proving this up in an appeal hearing. So like any other notice of violation that occurs here of any municipal code, staff's going to issue a notice of violation or an abatement order, or in some cases a fine or a penalty for the violation. That can be appealed to a hearing officer. There's a very long period there, like it must be vacant for 6 months, becomes a proof issue. So if the city doesn't have subpoena power in that administrative enforcement hearing, so unless there's some staff member who's going out there regularly documenting, taking pictures, creating a record, it doesn't mean that that can't happen. But when you require it for 2 months, it's that much harder. 3 months is that much harder, and so on. So if your ordinance says 6 months and this becomes an enforcement matter and the city is going to an enforcement hearing, it could be very difficult. In some cases, might not be possible to show that it was vacant for the full 6 months to require that registration if you put that time period in. So it's just one thing to think about with the time period here. And if it's complaint driven and staff's got discretion for it, the 30 days might not be so bad if staff is
Right,
having the
right.
discretion to enforce this, as it does with any ordinance that it enforces, that staff enforces. It does apply to a portion of the building. So the definition does say a building or any portion thereof. So in the case of like one unit, that's the one that would be declared vacant. It would need to be registered and comply, not the entire building. Costs and fees would come back in a separate resolution with some kind of fee study prepared by staff. There'd be a public hearing and they wouldn't take effect until after you went through. So it would either come back at the first reading or second reading for adoption of this. And then you already have nuisance provisions as well that touch upon these things. It just doesn't require registration and payment of a fee. So in the case of enforcement, it would also include a nuisance action likely.
Great.
That's all I got.
Thank you. That's something to consider then. Yes.
I just feel that, again, 30 days, I hear what you're saying, but it also just concerns me that 30 days really is not very much time. Somebody leaves, they give you no notice, they're going to leave. They just tell you at the end of the month, we're leaving, and if you've got to move really quickly, and there's a lot that may have to be done if they left the place a mess, or, there's just 30 days, I think there's a happy medium in there. So I just look for that happy medium.
Okay. Do I have any input from the public? That
Hello,
ARD building falling down.
Oh,
We're gonna look at that.
yeah, there you go. Sue Engel, private citizen. I really appreciate what you're doing, Jonathan, with this, because this has been one of my pet peeves is some of the businesses have been closed for years. And for instance, we all know you come off the freeway at Nevada Street, and the first thing you see on the right is a chain link around a building that's been closed for I don't know how long, but it's been, I would say, years. The building on the left, the old Mary Bell's, has been closed for, 20 years. So some of these, I'm going to call them repeat offenders as far as keeping them closed. This is right, the first thing you see when you come into Old Town.
Yeah.
And I'd really like us to see us focus on the ones that have been closed the longest.
I agree. Thank you, Sue.
Betty Martin. I own a commercial building. And I understand we have these buildings, but have you talked to these owners and found out and they won't do anything? So I understand this, but I have a problem with 30 days. I just got my insurance bill for my building, $12,000 a year for my fire insurance. For me to find somebody to rent, now I am in that commercial building, so I have to pay it. But if I were to close my building and find somebody to rent my building, just the insurance part of that building is $1,000 a month. 30 days to find somebody to rent a building plus what my payment would be is not even feasible. 3 months, maybe, but 6 months is a normal time to find a business to replace a business. 30 days to make me fill out paperwork every 30 days, to threaten to fine me, you're going to make it where people aren't going to want to come to this town. So I understand making it where people have to keep their buildings up. And Mary Bell's, yes, I would love to see a restaurant in, but the way our laws are with all the improvements that have to be made, there's no way anybody can afford to make that a restaurant again. We need to find somebody who wants to put a dress shop in there or maybe another art store. We need to find something, but if you're saying this ordinance has 116 pages, is that?
No.
You're talking page 113?
Yeah,
No, that was the agenda.
agenda packet. So the whole council packet. So when I
Okay,
referred to the page number, it's just so
Probably about
staff
five.
knew. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
packet, all the items.
okay, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
misunderstood then. I apologize.
yeah, no, it's not. that.
Okay, I'm like 113 pages, okay.
Yeah, no.
Do you need to clarify that when we're,
Sorry.
okay. So yeah, I just think we need to look at it more as a business owner instead of a city ordinance, okay?
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Then reports of the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. So I think most folks have heard of this, but for those who have not, the city of Auburn has announced our new chief of police. pending successful employment agreement negotiations and council approval of that employment agreement. So through the process of several different interviews with a panel, I think 3 different panels, and then 3 finalist interviews that I did, we selected our current Auburn Police Department Lieutenant Brian Morrison as our future chief of police.
Woo-hoo!
I was waiting for. Oh, he's
Bolo.
Brian, you want
Yep.
to step forward?
Bolo echoes
Bolo's
that.
cheering for him as well. Yeah.
Yes, he is.
So we'll be bringing his contract to council on February 10th. That'll also be interim chief of police Ted Steck's last day working for the city. And Chief Steck's done a great job of kind of steadying the police department and getting things kind of just smoothed out after our former police chief left. Lieutenant Morrison has more than 26 years of police experience to the position, with more than 4 of those in his current capacity as lieutenant for the Auburn Police Department. He's worked for the department for about 8.5 years, starting as a police officer, and then he's worked his way up. Also for the PD, in December, the PD made a total of 11 DUI arrests with an average blood alcohol concentration of 0.219.
Gee.
Yeah. And an average age of 42 among the offenders, closing out the year for the full year, at least as of this report. Total of 126 DUI arrests, including 15 drug-related DUIs, which was a significant increase from the 4 reported in the previous year in 2023. End of year average for BAC was 0.197, with an average age of 38. So if you're going to be drinking and driving, don't do it here in Auburn.
Don't do it at all, please.
Don't do it at all, please. Yes.
Not at all.
Thank you for the clarification. That's what I meant to say. TOT tax implementation. So Measure F passed, obviously. And so with that, a new occupancy tax on all short-term rentals within the city. So staff has been working to establish a contract with HDL companies. HDL is the company that the city uses for our sales tax forecasting. Statewide, cities do that statewide, basically use this company for the same thing. And so HDL will be assisting with the identification, registration of all short-term rental properties in the area. And then they'll manage the collection and the enforcement of the newly implemented tax as well. So taking the burden off of staff and still seeing the revenue is what we're looking for with that. And then finally, with the fire department, I want to let folks know between December 24th and January 2nd, so a short amount of time there, Auburn Fire Department responded 61 calls of service, including 38 medical aids, 3 vehicle accidents, 9 public assistance calls, 6 fire alarms, and 5 fire-related incidents. And fortunately, we didn't have any significant incidents during that time. I did want to have Chief Rogers come up and give council an update on the folks that we have from the fire department who are out at the fires down in LA. So thank you, sir.
I always yell in this thing. So good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for having me this evening. John Rogers, your fire chief. So just to give you an update, we sent our Type 1 fire engine out at 2 o'clock in the morning on January 8th to the Palisades fire as part of a Placer County strike team. The leader came from Roseville with engines from Auburn, Roseville, Placer Hills, and Newcastle, and the 5th engine came out of the Tahoe Basin in Nevada. So our strike team deployed down there. They went on the line for 2 operational periods. They've been out working. Today is a 24-hour on period, so they're working today. I don't have any direct information as commitment time. Captain Croft, Captain Bowers, and Firefighter Sims are on that engine, working diligently. We have 1 firefighter that's out on paternity leave, which leaves us down 4 firefighters, 3 out of county, obviously, and then the guy that's raising his baby. So the rest of the firefighters are here, working diligently to cover the city while we're assisting our partners in Southern California. And then with that, I'd just like to go ahead and say our thoughts and prayers are with not only the victims of the fires in Southern California, but also we're praying for the first responders as well.
And then just wrap up. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that. Met with the, I was thinking about this because the reporter from the Journal just left. I met with the editor and the publisher of the Auburn Journal. I'm going to actually start writing a once a month column for the Journal, just talking about city stuff. So the first one will be sometime this month in January, and then I'm going to try to stick on some kind of a schedule. So, yeah.
I used to do that. I had a little weekly column in the Journal way back during my first tenure.
Yeah.
It was good. Talked about all kinds of informational items.
Yeah,
so
it'll be good.
Good.
And like, I mean, a future newspaper editor and reporter. So going, as Gary said, back to my roots to, yeah, so look for that.
Committee reports, we have, we're just all switching over and there wasn't a lot in December, but I did want to bring up that, since the roundabout came up, I had been looking at a lot of roundabout designs, and I really do think it's important that we put that there's a preference for putting the city of Auburn's name on the roundabout. So I would like to ask that we bring back the RFP and put in a preference for the name for the city of Auburn, if that works for everyone else, to bring that back. I don't know how we suggest that. We can talk about, bring it back for a conversation.
Okay.
That's all I had.
No, I just, sustainability, there was we have a little Yamasaki, for free, did a front lawn, draft, and it was really pretty for this front of the city hall and police department. And I should have brought it, but I will bring it next time. So, anyway, it's coming along, moving along. Do we have to figure out, they have some Rotary, they can get some free labor. They have some people that want to, do bricks to get funds. So there'll be ways to finance it as well.
Sorry, finance what? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I wasn't very clear. Sustainability, I'm trying to go too fast. The front lawn.
Oh, the front lawn.
The front lawn.
We
for
haven't
City Hall.
But we haven't
and-
decided that what we're doing for the front yard.
No.
We haven't even
No.
talked about
No.
whether or not we're going to do anything.
Okay, we're selling bricks. I thought there was some decision.
No, that's possible funding. If we
We're just
do
talking
it,
about-
we have to figure out how we're going to do it, how we're going to
I'm
pay
with you
for it.
now. Thank you.
And then, let's see, the bike lane, we talked about that a little bit. Striping Maidu, is that being striped for the bike lane?
So the Maidu is done. So the lanes have been narrowed. Folks probably won't even notice that, but the lanes aren't as wide as they used to be. And the idea is to kind of help slow traffic down. Wider or narrower lanes, you tend to drive a little bit slower. The width of the shoulder has been increased. We were talking, I was talking to Menjel about potentially doing like a crosshatch striping along that, but we stripe in thermoplastic, and if you stripe in thermoplastic is raised, you're riding a bike along there, you're going to be like, and
yeah.
people could potentially fall. So we're looking at it right now on whether or not it meets the criteria for a bike lane or what. So, but it is a pretty wide shoulder now.
Yes, it
Or
is.
do we look at other pedestrian and bicycle access, whatever we're going to do there. So continuing to look at it.
Good, thank you. And then, the medallion project, there's, I think I told you last time, there's some storm drain. We're trying to identify so people don't pour things down storm drain. So there was a grant, Sue, I think, received the grant, and we have 400 to do, and there's going to be a work day that we're all going to try and get together and try and place them. We have maps, and we've been working with Public Works to identify where they are. So anyway, that's all from sustainability.
Just a question on that. So where did the grant come from? And
I think it's the air pollution control.
so was that a grant that the city applied for then, Sean?
No, I don't think the city did. Menjel, did the city apply for it?
Somebody
Or
had to.
Somebody through the city, maybe. The medallions for the. Yeah, so.
Okay, so it wasn't a city grant. It was
No.
a separate.
So
kind of
like
thing.
$500 or no,
Okay.
no, it was 5,000 maybe. Okay, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted, yeah.
And the city did some. If you go around, you can see them.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
I've seen one over by the bodega by your building.
Yes, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Even have mine on.
Okay.
All right, it's the end of the meeting.
Do you want me to
Yes,
next?
go ahead.
So, yes, most of I have SACOG this week, I have Pioneer this week, PCTPA is next week. Endurance Capital Committee is on Wednesday this week. So I really don't have too much to report at this time. I will tell you that, A League of Cities, you know, we did talk about, the board was updated by our executive director that they are coordinating with city managers across the state to try to provide assistance for the fires down south. So I don't know if Sean has been participating, but they did get the city manager's department involved in really trying to again, provide whatever assistance that is possible, you know, given that terrible tragedy down there. So, but I'll have more to report at our next meeting.
Then this meeting is adjourned.